Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me is Tony Zhang, Chief Options Strategist at Options Play, for an update on the Nordic equity markets and option strategies to trade the trends. Tony, welcome back to Trade Talks. Let's run through the 4 Nordic markets that you're taking a look at.
Yeah, so let's start off with Stockholm, or the Swedish market. The OMX S30 has made a pretty significant rally here back into the 1800 level, which is a major resistance level that it still hasn't managed to get back above from those June 5th highs. So this is one of the levels that we're paying attention to. The momentum here on this particular index is starting to slow down. So there are some concerns here about a potential pullback here. But if we do manage to break out above that 1800 level, that is the breakout level that we're looking for a continuation higher. So Stockholm looking fairly strong, but there are some concerns here as they reach these relative tops or all-time highs. The Copenhagen 25 index, this is really the strongest of the 4 Nordic markets. This one, similar to the Nasdaq 100 index, has surpassed its February highs from 2020. But it is right now contending with the 1475 double top here. There is a lot of negative divergence here up here. So we are concerned again also of a potential pullback here. So the common theme here is that markets are still in bullish trends. They are all testing resistance levels, but there are signs of exhaustion. There are signs of these markets being overbought. So we are concerned of a pullback. So the way to really position for these is to still play for further upside, but do so in a way with limited risk, such as option strategies. And then what we want to take a look at is the Helsinki 25. This is one of the weaker markets that have started to see quite a bit of strength here over the past couple of days. It is now contending with that 4150 resistance level and actually starting to break out higher. So out of the 4 markets, actually particularly strong. Catching up with the Stockholm and Copenhagen markets a little bit here over the past couple of weeks. So we do expect a breakout here. So some of the smaller cap names in Helsinki are some of the ones that we're paying attention to. And lastly, Oslo. Oslo was the weakest of the 4, but actually, again, is catching up here. Just broke above its 200-day moving average here just a couple of days ago. So we do actually expect to see further gains here in some of these smaller markets here in the Nordics rather than the 2 large ones.
Tony, let's talk about COVID-19 trends and Sweden's recovery, because they appear to have it figured out at the moment, and it's being reflected in the data.
Yeah, there certainly is a lot of debate right now as to, they obviously took a very different path to all of the other developed nations and trying to build a herd immunity. And the question really was, have they actually built that up, because they have seen substantially worse deaths and cases versus the other 4 Nordic countries. But if we look at some of the trends right now in terms of the number of new cases as a percentage of the population, they are the only country out of developed markets. There's only 2 countries out of the developed markets that have seen a decline, and Sweden is well ahead in that front. So there is some early data right now that is pointing us to that perhaps Sweden did do the right thing here in terms of creating some type of herd immunity for their citizens.
All right, and when we drill down a bit deeper into the economic data, you're starting to see some recovery in the manufacturing space.
Yeah, actually the services space. So we are seeing a bit of a mixed picture, and we are seeing that across the board. The consensus is really wide across the board for most countries' economic outlooks, and Sweden is no different. But their services actually recovered back to, the services PMI recovered back to pre-COVID-19 levels. So there is some I would say optimism here in the services industry. The industrials and manufacturing industry has not seen the same type of recovery, still back in contraction levels here. So very mixed picture, but that's part of why when we're looking at the equity markets here in Sweden, we think that there are opportunities on both sides of the coin, both on bullish and bearish opportunities.
All right, let's take a look at some option strategies to trade these trends. Your first one's in airlines.
Yeah, so I wanted to start off with something a little bit more speculative in nature, because I think it's very suitable for the use of options for these types of plays, especially with travel stocks taking a bit of a rally here over the past couple of days. U.S. Airlines up 5-6% over the past couple of days, and Scandinavian Airlines also participating a little bit on this rally, but they do report earnings here in less than 2 weeks. So I thought this was a good exercise in showing how you can potentially play for an upside here or potential bounce in airline stocks using an option strategy with limited risk. So I was looking at SAS, and I was going out to September, and I was looking at buying the 7.5 call option, which is the slightly in the money call option and selling a $10 call option against that. So trading a call vertical here. And this only costs 65 cents to trade this 2.5 crown wide debit spread here, risking only 65 crowns to potentially make up to 185 if Scandinavian Airlines bounces above 10 crowns on expiration date here. So travel stocks obviously have the biggest opportunity for upside, but also very volatile. So we want to make sure that we control the downside. So this is one way that you can utilize options to play for a binary event like earnings and have about a 3-to-1 risk to reward ratio on that particular trade.
All right, Tony, let's move along to staples.
Yeah, so AXFO, this is one of the few Swedish grocery stocks that really took advantage of COVID-19 and saw a bit of a tailwind as a result of that. But ever since it broke out above that 200 level back in late April, we saw a bit of a consolidation or more of a topping formation that finally broke below the 200 support level just over the past couple of weeks, came back to retest that level as resistance and got rejected. So we do think that these staple stocks are going to continue to decline. And one of the ways to play that is using a put spread and doing so that you're limiting your risk here. So I'm looking out to September and buying a 195, 180 put spread here, paying about 500 crowns for that 15 crown wide credit debit spread here. And again, risking roughly about 2-to-1 on this type of trade. And the goal here is always to try to reduce the amount of risk you're taking on any of these trades. This only risks 2.5% of the underlying stock price to take a bearish bet, so that if the stock continues to decline, it's slow grind lower, you're able to take advantage of that while risking only 2.5% of the stock price.
And let's wrap up with tobacco. I don't think we've ever done a tobacco trade for the Nordics market.
No, I don't think we have either, but tobacco has seen a bit of a reversal in terms of trends here, especially the long-term downtrend we've seen in tobacco. A lot of these names have just started to break back above its 200-day moving average. So I found a fairly attractive way to play for yield on these types of names that typically don't move a whole lot. Swedish Match pays about a 1.8% dividend, very much in line with most of the, actually a little lower than most of the tobacco names. But another way to generate income is to sell credit spreads. So I was looking out to September and selling the 690, 660 credit spread, which is a 30-point wide credit spread, collecting about 980 crowns, which is exactly 1/3 of the width here. That'll give you about a 1.5% yield in less than in about 37 days here, as opposed to a 1.8% yield for the full year. So fairly attractive yield while only risking about 3% of the stock price. So another way to generate yield as these markets kind of trade in a bit of a sideways market in the current environment that we see.
And Tony, to wrap up here, how does the Trade Talks audience get in touch with you on options play?
Yeah, so we have a fantastic partnership with Nasdaq Nordic, which allows all Nordic investors to access options play, education, and weekly commentary and reports that we send out to customers completely free of charge. And you can sign up for that and register for a free account at optionsplay.se.
All right, Tony, great to have you with us as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.